Is this not one of the most beautiful guns ever made? Top 5 maybe?
It's incredible.
When we think about guns of the Wild West, and we close our eyes and we just say, okay, what's the most popular, quintessential, maybe even cliche, what's just the top 4 guns that pretty much everybody can kind of look at, identify as, and we can thank the history of cinema for a lot of this, but I think it would be this, and this. And what is it? It's a Derringer. Why do we call it a Derringer, huh? Where did it come from? What's the history? There was a Philadelphia rifle maker named Henry Derringer, who in the early 1840s recognized that a small, very small, concealable pistol would be something he could market easily to the masses, right? So he came up with a single shot, percussion, little hideout gun, little tiny cute pistol. Most famous for assassinating Lincoln. So this was so popular, this little gun, that it was copied by many. And I should note that Derringer, Henry Derringer, his Deringers is with 1 R. And we know most of them we spell with 2 R's, D-E-R-R. Well, many copycat fraudulent little pistols back in the day, supposedly, some argue, adopted an extra R in the word Derringer to avoid some legal issues. Others say that in newspaper accounts of the Lincoln assassination, or in other cases where a Derringer was used, that newspapers a lot of times erroneously just added the extra R and it became known as Derringer. Either way, most of the times we spell it, we include that extra R. It kind of ended up being 2 R's. Side story, kind of fun if true. There was another Philadelphia resident named Jacob Derringer who was a tailor, and some people approached him. He allowed them to use his name for a fee so they could call it a Derringer. Now, once cartridges came out, we had a whole new crop of little tiny hideout guns, Colt, Remington, and they started adopting the term Derringer for their models, because by that time Derringer had become a term to describe small hideout guns, basically. So this particular gun was designed by a dentist who started designing all sorts of guns, and Remington started producing them from 1866 all the way till 1935. That's a long run. That's one of the longest runs of a type of gun in history. Sometimes this is referred to as a double Derringer. These are 41 caliber. Move this little lever over that allows the barrel to flip up like so. It also has a little extractor. Most of them have what we call a batch number. So under the grip here is a 3-digit number, and they went up to 999, or is it 1999? Either way, they got to a certain point and they would just start over with the numbers. So this particular 3-digit number can be shared by other Derringers of different batches, if that makes sense. One way to sort of ballpark the age of the Remington Deringer is what the Remington address line looks like and where it's located. So the very first batch had Remington and the address and stuff written here. Then they moved to the top rib here, and the first time they went to this spot, it was a 2-line address, and then it got to be a single line address. And then there's people who discuss whether it's a long or short line, whether it's italics or straight. So you can really geek out over what appears to be the exact same gun, but there's just the slightest differences. This has a single line across the top. That would date this one between 1888 and 1911. This one is nickel plated. It might be a re-nickel since the address line is not as crisp as I would like to see it. This had original worn grips on it. I like to use it in some of the movies. Therefore, I put some new grips on it, which gave it a fresher look and didn't look like an antique while in the old movie. I got this into one show so far. That would be the series Walker Independence. You should check it out. It only went 1 season, but it was pretty fun. It's a nice little moment where Kate pulls this out and puts it to good use. People debate whether the 41 rimfire, which was sort of a short, squat cartridge, had much power. Well, it definitely had enough to puncture flesh and kill you. Great for close-up or point-blank card table distances. What's a card table distance?
30 inches.
After 1921, it started being referred to as the Model 95. There's even some reports of GIs in World War II carrying one of these as their backup gun, which is pretty awesome because, again, you think Wild West, but to think about a GI overseas pulling this out on some Nazi is kind of a pretty cool sight to imagine. By the time Remington was done with this gun, they had sold anywhere between 130 to 150,000. Now this is a modern variant. This is made by Cobra Enterprises. And this one I did a couple little modifications because of who I am and what I do. Bam! What? A fanning hammer and a trigger ring? Let's just say, look, ooh, nothing in there. Good. That allows you to bring it out and this, you couldn't quite fan it really hard with the mechanics in this. It's not quite made for, but movie magic, it could do that. Anyway, this does allow you to bring it back nice and easy. These guns are really hard to pull the hammer back typically. That Remington, the original Remington's a little easier, but these especially, you think like, ooh, ladies gun, but it's really hard to pull that hammer back until you get on it in a kind of a wonky way. So this definitely helps. Now I was able to get this into Westworld Season 4, Episode 4, when they're in the 1920s, they go into the saloon and one of the working girls has to defend herself against a couple of creeps, and she pulls this out and basically wards them off.
Oh, gut shot. Gut shot was one of the worst ways to die in the Old West. You get shot there. Agonizing torment and pain for days until you finally die. It was not good. I guess it gave you some time to think and maybe realize Jesus Christ might be the way, the truth, and the light. Maybe I should get my act together before I'm gonna bleed out all over. And over and again. I'm gonna bleed out all over.